Wavect, the Web3 software company that understands what you want.
Hi everyone, welcome at Wavect. Today a really special episode with Dominic Klopsch, who is the co-founder of TIVAN Consulting and also podcast host of NFTea-Time. Or if I pronounce it incorrectly, please let me know.
No worries.
Okay.
It's all correct. Welcome from my side as well. It's a pleasure being here. I think we can be quite honest when it comes to that, because actually it is an unusual situation for both of us, right? I mean, we are both podcast hosts. So usually what we do is we interview other people, right? And this time we are both podcast hosts, and both of these, it will be published in both podcasts, right? So it's an unusual situation for both of us, but nonetheless, I think that's even more interesting. So I'm super excited to see how that's going to turn out, actually.
100%. And as Dominic just said, so it's actually not really a 100% Wavect episode. It's actually a 50-50 session. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, to be fair, we need to put the correct branding out there as well. Yeah. And today we talk about a super exciting topic, and that's Web3 education, teaching the next generation about the decentralized web. And before we do that, I would say, Dominic, let's start with you. Introduce yourself as well. I will do so too for your listeners. Then let's see where we go.
Yeah, happy to introduce myself. Yeah, so exactly, my name is Dominic. I am the co-founder of TIVAN Consulting, which is focused on community building, community solutions within Web3 and NFT projects. And I started a company in May. Obviously, have been in the space before already. And next to that, I am the host of the podcast NFTea-Time, which is actually about 1 year old now. The first episode was actually published in December 2021, so nearly 1 year old now, which is quite exciting. When I started the podcast, I didn't think it would go for that long, or I didn't really have too many expectations to it, right? It was just like, okay, let's start a podcast, why not? Some things grew out of that, and super happy to also be here. And probably it would make sense if you introduce yourself to my listeners now.
By the way, love it. I think I generally have that zero expectation mindset, so that definitely goes into that. So that's super cool. About me, basically, I'm the founder, or let's put it correctly, managing partner of Wavect, which is a Web3 software agency in Austria, and I'm also active partner of Decentralized, which is a company in data analytics for corporate debt. And so a little bit diverse on that end, but in general, fintech, especially blockchain side, that's where my passion is. And so let's see where we go today.
Right.
Yeah. And as you mentioned before, today is about Web3 education, especially targeting children. So I would say, starting out, maybe where do we see the difficulties? How could we do it? What are the challenges? I don't know. I will drop the ball to you.
Yeah. I think generally it's a very difficult topic actually to break it down, because education doesn't only start with kids, right? That's a bit of our focus today, but generally we know, as people who work in that space, we know how important education is, right? I mean, you read a newspaper article, and let's say one of the big newspapers, and usually a lot of the details are missing, or maybe some of the details are not really displayed in the right way, which sometimes leads to the situation that we, as people who actually work in that space and who have a deeper understanding, feel misrepresented. That's something of my feelings sometimes, not to blame like all newspapers that they're not doing a good job. That's not what I want to say, not at all. But education generally is super important. And when we talk about that technology of crypto, blockchain, Web3, these kind of base layers of the future of where we're headed with regards to online services, it is quite important also to take into account younger people when it comes to educational content, right? And my thought is always, when talking about that, I take a look at the German educational system, and I very often think like, all right, okay, when I look at my school, what I learned when it comes to IT and software stuff, it was very basic, right? Super basic stuff. So I think it's quite tough to bring that next level knowledge, so to say, to teach it actually to kids. And maybe it shouldn't necessarily only be focused on kids, but also thinking about, I mean, we are not only talking about kids who have difficulties understanding complex technology, but also older people that are not within our generation, but maybe a bit older, who have trouble understanding all of that. So I think the approach can be more or less the same, but obviously there are some specialty when it comes to teaching kids. And my understanding is you already did that, right? You already or do that actively, that you actually teach kids Web3 and crypto, right?
A lot of interesting things said, and I fully agree with everything of that. And yes, I had a blockchain course in, I think it was August this year, where I teach around 15 kids how to develop smart contracts in 4 or 5 days. So that was really, really a risky experiment.
Because in what context was it? Was it like in a school, or where was it?
It was in collaboration with Coding for Kids, which is a NGO in Austria. Actually, as far as I know, the largest. That's usually organizing software courses for children. And this year, as I did that already the last couple of years, I said, well, we are a blockchain company. Why don't we try smart contracts? And they went with it. And luckily, it went really well. The feedback was incredible. And I would lie if it would have gone without difficulties. I sweated, I would say, my ass off too. Sorry for being like so direct here, but it was really, really, starting with testnet tokens and all that stuff for people that are a little bit more technical here. But
did you, I mean, so you taught before to kids, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, the approach on educating kids is probably completely different, I would assume, because if I'm thinking on how fast also you can go, right? What the basic knowledges you can assume are already existing is something that is probably not existing. So I don't know, if I were to think about how I would set up such a course, I think you have to work with analogies and with examples a lot to maybe take real life examples and say, hey, so look, this is a book, right? And this book consists of 1,000 pages. And once you write one page, it goes to the next page, and you cannot alter the old page to, I don't know, maybe that is a stupid explanation of blockchain, but it might be one that works for kids. So I think you have to break it down differently.
Fully agree on that. Well, one thing that I would add to this probably is, yes, there definitely is a different set of expectations, right? When you talk with an adult versus, I would say, teen child. In my case, it was 10 to 15 years old. So it's not that of a small child, right? They already understand things. They already are able to navigate the internet, have a smartphone usually.
They probably already have a lot of smartphone experience, I guess.
But as you said, how I always did it and how I still love to do it in the next courses that we do, storytelling, right? And I can tell you how the first day went. Basically, I came in there and didn't even turn the computer on. I just told them stories about blockchain, about the crazy stuff, about scams, inflation, 2008, things that, why would you tell that a child? But they were so excited, like the power dynamics, like, oh, well, not even Google, not even China can take that away from me. Okay, that's sick. So, you know, that, yeah.
But that is an interesting approach because I mean, when you go in with stories, you can catch way more attention than if you just try to teach pure theory or something, right? You
100%.
can really tell also real life stories, and I think a lot of the scam things are as sad as they are or as frustrating as they are quite interesting, and they are a story, right?
Yeah. Especially scams, right? Everyone loves stories about security, scams, everything around that. It's just exciting, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is a reason probably why there will be, I think, more than probably one movie or series about the whole FTX thing, I guess, right? It
I
is
agree.
a story.
Yeah. Same for Wirecard. That's already a movie as well, I guess,
It's
if
a
I'm not
podcast,
mistaken.
it's a
Yeah.
movie, it's a book, it's probably
Yeah.
more than one documentary as well. It's a massive, massive media outlet also, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm well, what I observed is that was definitely the, would say, most engaged day of the child. For sure, it was also the first day. We have to take that into account. But it was really like extreme, you know, they all the time, like they asked really, really deep and contextual questions, right? They really understood it. We even talked about gas fees and everything. And I didn't say like, oh, well, you have to pay for a transaction. No, you save something and everyone has to save that. Well, that costs them money. So why should they do that for free? So I try to approach things with the why, you know, why do things happen? Why are things the way they are? Again, with storytelling, as you said, it's, I guess that works for all age groups, as you mentioned before, right? That's how it should be.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just a tendency if you speak with a child directly, that you tend to do that more because you need to. So maybe it's just the expectations that you have.
But for how long did the course actually take place? How many days was it?
5 full days. That's it.
5 full days. And so you had the first day with storytelling, and how much did you actually cover? Like how many topics did you actually cover during that? Because 5 days is a lot. You can put a lot of content in 5 days, right?
Well, they also need to digest it, right?
Yeah.
For me, the first day was really important that I felt like they understand what gas fees are, what a wallet is, why they have these crazy words, those 12 or 24 words that they need to note down, why that's something special, why it exists, you know, these kind of understanding arguments, and what a smart contract is. Like a lot of theoretical stuff, but it didn't felt like theory. That was basically the first day. And also how a smart contract looks like, just a first glimpse, you know. But after that, I actually have shown them how and what tokens, NFTs are. And for sure, as you can imagine, they are not developing smart contracts on their own completely independently now for the next few days. It was a lot of support that I need to give most of the teams. Not all of them. I have to honor that. There were 3 teams out of those, like consisting of 1 to 3 kids that worked incredibly independently and even created smart contracts that I didn't even discuss once, but are completely aligned with the use case of blockchain, such as on-chain lotteries. Who would have thought that to get to the idea to make a lottery on-chain needs already a really good understanding why this technology exists. And 2 teams, or actually 3 teams, did that. That were those independent teams. I didn't code a single line. They did it all by themselves by Googling and everything. And when there was a bug, for sure, I helped them. But that's just crazy. in a few days, and then presenting it to their parents on the last day. That was like...
it was presented also to the parents afterwards.
That's why I sweated, you know, like, oh fuck, it doesn't work.
I can imagine that. I can imagine. I mean, when I think about that, actually, you have to. So two things. First of all, what you said, what I found quite interesting is that the questions that they asked, they were really deep and contextual, right? Which makes a lot of sense, because in a younger age, I think you often don't overthink things, right? You just push out a question. You just boom. I don't understand that. Please explain it to me, right? I don't understand this. Please explain it to me. Whereas I think if you're more in our age, I think you might either assume certain things as given, or you might consider them not important, right? So you might be in a situation where you think, well, okay, I don't understand this, but maybe I don't have to ask it because maybe it's not that important, right? And they just shoot it all out, which is probably a good thing, because it also gives you some input, right? It provides you with an understanding of what might be unclear to people that are not in that technology that deep or something like that, you know?
Yeah, that's a really interesting viewpoint. I haven't thought about that yet, to be honest. Wow, that could be, for sure. And yeah, I guess that could be.
And the other thing I that came to my mind was also when you try to explain things to in that case the young teenagers, you try to be conscious about the way how you explain it. So you try not to overcomplicate things and just throw in. I mean, to be honest, I mean, how many meetings have I participated in where you just have people throwing in buzzwords?
Yeah.
There is a thing called buzzword, a bullshit bingo, right? So because people just drop in buzzwords without actually knowing what they mean when they talk about that. You cannot do that with young teenagers. It doesn't work like that. So it also challenges yourself when teaching or when educating, especially that age group or people that are not that familiar with the space, to choose your wordings carefully, and just to be conscious of how you actually explain certain things. And this probably also helps you yourself to understand certain concepts better, because you just question certain concepts, I assume.
100%. So something that I see all the time when teaching anyone, but for sure with children even more, that there are oftentimes questions that you haven't even asked yourself. And that can be challenging sometimes, depending on how deep you are in the topic, right? So that's definitely something where there's a reason why this saying exists, right? If you teach someone, you usually learn maybe even more than the actual student. Which sounds bad, but there's a reasoning behind that, I would say. And what you also said, and fully agree with that, on how you actually explain things, right? I put a lot of pressure or emphasis on body language and being like really, really excited about the topic. Because if you are, I'm really coming into on the first day, I usually come in like, and when that, and like one of these crazy, stupid teachers, like, from the movies, but you actually like them in some way, right? Because it's interesting, it's funny. And I think that's the way, but not just for children, as you said. It should be for everyone. Learning should be fun, and the more storytelling, and the easier it is, to follow the topics. the further you go.
I absolutely agree. This is also something, and this is not only related to teaching children or something, or young teenagers, but so for me personally, right, I'm not a deep tech person. I studied something with marketing and communication, right? So I'm not the IT guy. I do understand, I would say, my fair share of it, but I'm not deep into that. And it's not something that comes to me naturally. So also for me, whenever somebody is talking to me on a very technical level, I have troubles understanding all of that. So also thinking about how you could incorporate storytelling generally in education, I think it makes sense, because those topics, I mean, like physics is rather dry, right? Well, okay, there are some classes where maybe you do some experiments and stuff, and then it's not dry, but generally it's probably more dry and not non-tangible topic. And I think in many cases it might be the same with IT or tech-related topics.
Well,
So maybe more storytelling or developing things by themselves or by oneself during school lessons or something might actually be a good idea, to help people understand it and to get in touch with it.
I think storytelling, that's a twofold thing, right? Like teachers, I think, would definitely agree with that point now, but would be curious if not. Storytelling works really, really well for introductory lessons. But I guess when it gets actually really deep, just thinking about physics, right? Talking about special relativity theory of Einstein, I'm sure you could do a really exciting storytelling lesson the first day, right? But after that, I don't know how you do then actually storytelling for the math problem itself, and it gets really deep and niche, and that could be difficult. So maybe that's just, I'm usually just doing some courses or workshops and things like that. I'm not a full-time teacher, not a full-time educator. So that might be a different part of the story, but there are definitely things you can do if you want to, I would say.
But do you think that it is something important to incorporate maybe also blockchain related topics more early into the educational system, or I don't know, is it a better idea to do it via programs where just something like you participated in, or should it be officially within schools? I don't know.
What do you think? Let's start the other side.
I don't actually think it should be within schools. It can be, well, tough one to translate into English, Arbeitsgruppen, AG, right? There is something where you have free time working groups, so to say, in German schools, and I guess in many other countries as well, where in their free time, more or less, well, they work on topics, or they are coming together to discuss or to learn about topics that are of special interest for them. And I could imagine it would make sense to dive into these topics on those levels, as a working group kind of level, but not where you actually do tests and get grades. Because I think in schools, probably it is more important to understand basics, like the basics of technology and IT. And to be honest, blockchain is probably not a basic logic or a basic necessity to understand when talking about IT. It is a special field that is becoming more and more important, but I don't think it is as important or important enough to actually include it in the schooling system. I think there are probably more topics that are of higher relevance that are not yet part of the school or educational system as of now than blockchain.
I really loved when you said a school is there to give you, let's say, the basic tooling, right? And I fully agree with that. The sad thing is, and I think most people agree, is education or traditional education doesn't do that yet, actually, to give you the basic tooling for life. Yeah. If you want to become a medical doctor or something like that, then it does. That's great. But for most other things, usually it's enough, or well, it would be much more useful for people to know how to understand insurances, to understand how to fill out their tax form, how does it work when you want to rent or buy a house. What are some possible fallbacks? What could happen to me if I do that? Things like that are actually applicable in real life for the general education there, right? When you go to the upper or higher education, like, I don't know, college or even high school, then, as you said, I think blockchain is way too niche right now. Maybe it makes sense to understand, like, what is it in general, so that people cut through the noise, understand what is scam, what's real, what's bullshit, what's not. That could be useful to not lose money, maybe. But otherwise, fully agree.
I think it depends a little bit. So also talking about different layers or different levels of education, talking about school, I think school is there to teach you basics in different fields, in a variety of fields, to basically enable a certain level of knowledge that is set. Probably, to be honest, a lot of those things are, well, our at least in Germany, and I assume it's the same in Austria, our educational system is rather old, so also the content is in many cases rather old. But let's be honest, mathematics doesn't change, right? It is mathematics. It doesn't change all the time, at least not the basics, right? So there is not too much to be adjusted here, and everybody should get a certain level of education. If it's necessary or reasonable to include, I don't know, how to buy or rent a house, or how to do your taxes or something like that in school, might be a different discussion. Then if you go on the next level and you think about universities or universities of applied sciences, my understanding is, in a university, what you're being taught is to be able to consume and inherit knowledge in a very fast and efficient way. So also, if you study IT in a university, you are not being taught how to avoid a scam. You are being taught the absolute basics, right? You are being taught how logic works. You are being taught how mathematics also work, because that is, you have to understand the basic levels, and then you can further deep dive. University of Applied Sciences is more really on, as the name states, applied. So it might be reasonable to include something in there. I guess there are also universities of applied sciences that already teach DLT stuff. But if I think also about university, like, I don't know, Karlsruhe Institute of Technology or a university in Vienna, they do have distributed ledger technology courses, but they teach the basics. They wouldn't go into NFTs, or at least not in detail as far as I know. And I think it actually does make sense that it is that way.
Absolutely. NFTs are a really narrow thing actually within blockchain, right? Or DLT. Blockchain is just a subset of DLT as well. So fully agree on that. And yeah, since you brought up the IT example, just thinking back at my own university degree, we all had the same education, right? Coming out of that bachelor's degree, basically. And what you can clearly see is some people are actually interested in it, right? And try things at home, do some projects, do that, try that. maybe even contribute to something. And some are just here to pass the exams, as in every other university and degree as well, right? But what I want to say is, it actually, as you said, gives you just the basic tooling to actually enter the space, how it should be, right? But also agree on it's usually too old, right? When I think back, I was the last, let's say, Jahrgang, last year of my university, when we actually learned about Java, PHP and so on, which is really old technology and still very widely used. Don't get me wrong, but it's not something that startups would build with. I don't know a single startup that would use these technologies. Not a single one. Maybe in fintech, but that's it. Right? And I work in fintech, so I don't see it. But that's, as you said, we are not adapting fast enough. And it's just a basic tooling, and either we communicate that properly to people going to university, because I don't think that's done actually. People think they do that and then they're full-blown accountants, programmers, whatsoever. They are not.
Which is not the case.
Yeah. I think that's the main issue.
No, I agree with that. And another thought also to somehow, I don't know, wrap it up a bit, because I think we are approaching our time limit a bit. I really appreciate you also doing that work with coding for kids, right? Because eventually it might happen that one or two out of these group of kids will end up in IT, maybe even in blockchain or DLT space, and maybe you participated in raising their interest. So good work, and I think if we really want to, I don't know, be at the forefront of technological developments also in Europe, we have to keep educating our kids. And to be honest, not everybody, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, I don't know, everybody wanted to be a music star or a rapper or whatever. Now everybody wants to be a YouTube or TikTok star, right? Well, not everybody can. So raising interest at a young age for a certain topic or a technology or something is very valuable, I think, in just raising the next generation of innovative thinkers and people that actually move something forward.
Fully agree. You just I wouldn't say triggered a thought in my head, or let's say a memory, because after the course I did in summer, I wanted to hire one of those childs, because I not one of the 10-year-olds, but one of the 14, 15-year-olds. And I didn't think about child labor at that time. And I asked my tax advisor, because even his parents actually asked me, what can we do to actually support him even more, because he loves it and he was really crazy. One of those guys, he was actually working alone, developing a lottery, and everyone in the group was playing or using it, and it worked. And I asked my tax advisor, can I hire him? What does that mean? And so on. And I got back one email, attention, 20 exclamation marks. I thought, what the fuck? And then, that was definitely one of the moments I didn't think enough. Let's put it that way.
You didn't mean it in a bad way, right? But there are some laws. You cannot hire a 12 or 13-year-old.
14, but still
14.
On the edge.
Well, then you should try to keep his interest maybe for another 2 years, and then you can at least hire him on, I don't know, some sort of a 3-hour-a-week basis or something.
But definitely a fun story for the end.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Kevin. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise.
Thanks a lot. Really interesting setup also that I don't interview you, you don't interview me, but we just have that conversation. It's quite unusual, but it was a pleasure. I really liked it, and thanks a lot for letting me talk to you and being here.
Thanks, mate. I really can just echo everything you just said. Was a pleasure and honor as well. And yeah, hopefully, maybe even for more sessions in some kind of way in the future. Let's see where it goes. Yeah.
Yes. Cheers.
Cheers.
Wavect, the Web3 software company that understands what you want.